One of the last things I'm going to talk about now are air terminals. Air terminals are basically the last part of the mechanical system where the air comes out. Now for this class we're using 24 by 24 diffusers for the face, and then they have a 12 by 12 connector. So I've uploaded these for you on Canvas. You can also find them in the Imperial Library as the generic supply and generic return diffusers. So we need to go ahead and insert these in our project. So you can go to Systems and Air Terminals. You might get a prompt here that says there's nothing loaded. And in that instance, you could just load. Choose the ones you've downloaded. But we're going to be using the schematic supply and schematic return. So I'm going to place some here. And you can see whenever I'm placing this in a ground view, it's not really appearing, and that's because I have to pay attention to some of these elements. Now the level, we probably want to change this to one of our plenum levels. So I'm going to change this to level 2 plenum. I'm going to change this to one of the schematic diffusers. So again, I need to change that to the level 2 plenum and make sure the elevation is 0. And now we can place this. It will want to snap to grids, and if you have detail lines, it will want to snap to the detail lines as well. It will also sort of place directly on the duct if that's what you want to do. But I'm just going to place some here that I know I'll need. And these aren't perfectly placed. Another really good use of the annotate tool is to find the center point of these. And then you can use the EQ to distribute them equally. But that's not totally necessary. It's just sort of a reiteration of some of the tools at your disposal. So if I go to a 3D view here, I've turned everything off. Let's just go ahead and right click and turn off halftone and change transparency to 0. So this is what you might see here by turning your section box on, right? So we can see these supply diffusers here. And if we want to go ahead and connect them, we can go to the ground floor, and again we can sort of use this create duct tool, and we can place it there. Now it's probably not going to find a correct auto route solution. It's not 100% impossible that it doesn't find an auto route solution, but let's look into some of the difficulties into routing the air terminal into one of the ducts. I'm going to go into view and make a section view. And we're just going to make a section view that looks directly at this connection. So I'm going to flip it, I'm going to pull it in a little bit. Now we can go to that view. So, go to view. And we can even pull this down. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And change this to a medium detail level. So what do we have here? Well, we have a level 2 plenum, and then I have a duct with an offset because it was aligned to the beam. You know, your situation might be different. Your plenum might actually be below here, which means that this diffuser might be a little bit lower. But if that's not the case, I'm going to show you an alternate method to give you a little bit more room here and figure out how we can start to connect these things. If I select the diffuser that I want to connect to the duct and I use this create duct tool, you can see that there are some rules that are sort of auto-populating. See, if I go up, eventually if I turn, it will sort of want to create this connection. And that allows us to determine a couple of things. One, it determines how much room we need for this elbow, and two, it determines where this thing will be placing. So what I recommend doing is selecting these things, and before we go into all of our air terminals, let's just try and figure out one of these, and we can move it to where the center is somewhere close to the center of the duct. So the center of this duct is close to the center of this duct. And then we can go into architecture and level, and we can create a level down here and just call it air terminal. Again, there's a bunch of ways to do this. This is just sort of a tip to get you started if you're frustrated by this method, by placing your air terminals and trying to connect them. Now we can go ahead and drag this into place. And let's take a look at 3D. Let's take a look at what's happening here. Well, these ones are still up at the higher level, so I'm going to control click them. And if you place other ones in the future, you can change their layer to that new air terminal layer. You can also just give it an offset. You can give all of your air terminals an offset. So let's go to ground and let's try to connect this now. So if I use the same method and I select the center line here, it's still really not doing what we want it to do. It's connecting to like the top of it, which is sort of annoying. So when I go to my ground view here, I'm just gonna select off of it, and then I'm not going to connect them directly, and then I'm going to use the modify and align that duct down. So now when I go back to the ground view, I can connect these, and they will successfully connect with the tap, and that's how you can do the rest of your air terminals. Now there's one more way that we can look at this and try to troubleshoot it, and that's by drawing in the duct and seeing where its justification lies. So I'm going to click this, go into the ground view, and I am going to choose this in create duct, and we're going to use some justification tools here. Actually, we don't really need to change the justification. All we really need to change is this middle elevation. So I'm going to make this 0. And that is really the thing that keeps adjusting it. For some reason that adjusts to a higher dimension. So now this is pretty good. It's not quite on the center, but that's totally fine. We could go ahead and do the rest of our ducts this way, or the rest of our air terminals this way.